She's going to give us a lot of the ins and the outs that regardless of where you are in your career, you'll have an opportunity to plug in. So if you're somebody who doesn't do Medicare, it's not really part of the nature of what you do in your practice, it's still important that you be well-rounded. It's the reason why in each of the regional meetings, we're addressing issues that apply to almost everybody, that we should at least know enough to be able to be a resource for our clients. So we're really pleased to have Tracy. She'll be coming on a little bit later in the program. We have two other partner-sponsor relationships. So I did want to make sure that those of you in the room and also those of you at your desks, at your office, at home, now using the Zoom technology, it gives all of you an opportunity to participate in every regional meeting. We will be sending this out not only live, but it will be sent out also by email to everyone over the next few days. We'll get that out and around to you guys. So we're excited about that. So I want to talk about the partner-sponsor relationships. We've always had sponsors at NAIFA Maryland, but we recognize there's several sponsors that we have had for years. And these sponsors have provided a different kind of a relationship in a way that, again, is more education-oriented. So we recognize this is more of a partnership relationship. So we have a level of sponsorship that we call partner sponsors. And we have three in particular. So we talked a little bit about Tracy, and we'll be hearing more from her today. I also want to mention that Bellman Klein is in the room. We've got Scott Silver is in the back of the room, so you guys can't see him at home or at your desk, but for those of you who are here, Scott is a great resource. He is the face of Bellman Klein. Bellman Klein's local here, right in Howard County. So what are they? If you need a back office for disability or life insurance, okay, they represent many, many carriers, but it really, again, is about the resources that they provide. It's a level of education that they provide. I've been in my practice for 30 plus years, consider myself a specialist in those two areas, not so much in the Medicare side. But I know that I can make a phone call, and even though I feel I have a lot of the answers, I get a real broad-based understanding of what's out there, what's new, and how I can work with them. In most cases, when you work with Bellman Klein, you're not paying any extra resources as a result of it. But again, it's not so much about that. It's about recognizing that we have this resource that you can call. They're not there to sell you, that they don't offer education and services. So disability and life insurance needs that stretch across not only the individual, but also in the corporate world as well. The third partner is AXA Equitable. We had him speak at our last regional meeting. He did a great job telling us a little bit about annuities, but he talked in a broad-based way about the retirement process and some of the roadblock risks that our clients are going to face as they approach and go through retirement. So again, a great resource. A quick example, when I sit down and have lunch with someone like Michael Z from AXA Equitable, our partner relationship, I learned things like 72T. And just for those of you, again, if you're not familiar with that, in the financial space, and again, if you're not a financial advisor, it's good to know that you don't have to wait till 59 and a half to flip the switch on retirement income. Under 72T in the IRS code, it's a way you can begin to draw income earlier without penalties if you follow certain rules under 72T. Something I learned from Michael Z. So again, value add across the board of our three partner sponsors, so I wanted to start with that. I wanted to share a little bit before we move on in the program with where we're heading into next year. So 2020, NAIFA 2020 at the national level, we realize that a lot of people are finding it difficult to get to a meeting that might be across the state. So we're capitalizing on Zoom technology. Again, it's a way that regardless of where our regional meeting is, you can be there in person by being there virtually. Okay, so we want to continue to make that opportunity available. Going into next year, we'll have at least 5 regional meetings. But we're also going to tie into something called NAIFA Live. There are a couple other states across the country that have been using this service, using Zoom technology. They're taking their budgets together and they're bringing in top name speakers across our industry to really give us a really good breadth and depth of the marketplace. We can tie in as well, and we're going to start this year with January. Will be the first NAIFA Live opportunity for us in Maryland to participate. We're going to have one live community spot that I can tell you for sure right now. We're going to look for some volunteers in the room and at home. So let Joan Smith, our executive director, or myself know if you're willing to host a NAIFA Live meeting. What does that entail? Well, I'm going to open up my office. Lisa doesn't know about this yet. We just built our new conference room. But I already have it. As soon as it's open, we're going to have maybe 12 to 15 members that are local within this region be able to participate, come and participate live. We'll have about a 20-minute to a half-hour meeting before, talk about NAIFA and just, again, a little bit of informal networking. Then we're going to hear a very high-powered top speaker live, virtually, from my conference room. Others will be able to Zoom in as well from the comfort of their home, their office. The same way we are offering these regional meetings, we're going to do this 12 times. January through December, we'll have a live opportunity to participate virtually through Zoom technology. we hope to have 6, 8, 10 sites across the state that will also offer up their conference rooms and allow on a monthly basis for a couple hours, an hour for the meeting, a half hour before, and a half hour after, because there is an agenda that they provide to these host sites to discuss what you heard and be able to roll up your sleeves and work together as a team, so that you walk away with what I really feel is the most important reason that I'm part of NAIFA, besides the advocacy, which goes without saying. It's about learning information that you can learn today and use tomorrow. So when I come to meetings like this, it's about learning something that you can digest now. We're going to learn from Tracy today, and it's information regardless of where you are in your career. You can walk away, walk out that door, and tomorrow you can have some more value that you can offer to your clients, even if it's not what you do. So I'm going to end before I introduce our membership chair by just, again, using Tracy as an example. If you're new, you don't do Medicare, it's not part of what you do, sitting there with your clients, you're not doing a service if you aren't at least touching on is Medicare coming up because of someone's age. At least understand when is that right time to explore that. And the basic concepts to be able to refer Tracy or somebody else or do it yourself. But somebody who's new, to have a resource to be able to walk out here today and just be able to have that much information, check the box. It just puts you at a really good start going into next year, having a little bit of understanding about Medicare. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. You're a Medicare expert. I always tell our experts, regardless of what the topic is, listen with an open ear and keep your eyes open. If you're an expert, you're going to miss opportunities when you come to meetings like this to find that one little thing that maybe you weren't aware of. Because it might be something you do every single day. They do it across the country. They're pretty much across the platform of all the products that are out there. And they're constantly on the pulse of what's new and that information. And to have somebody in your back office, if you're an expert, to be able to call up and say, is this correct, is that correct, is there something I'm not getting here? So walk away with that. Okay, so whatever it is you learn today and you use tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to introduce our membership chair, Bruce Palmieri. I want to recognize Bruce as one of our past presidents. We have Philip in the back of the room as well. Also past president for NAIFA Maryland. I want to thank Philip for being here as well. We'll get to the introduction of Bryson and Joan. We have our past president and membership chair, Steve Aquino. Wrote him down, I forgot to say. And Steve, and I also want to thank Steve for being my host partner for this site, for our regional meeting for this meeting. So with no further ado, Bruce.
Thanks, Brian. So every time I've come up, I've said the same things each meeting, that there's 3 things that NAIFA does for us: educate, advocate, and differentiate us in the marketplace. Brian talked a little bit about what's going to happen today with Tracy. The educational piece is just so critical. Having access to Zoom is so important. We have people in their offices, in their homes, watching this now. Thank you for being a member. I just left a meeting with Delegate Courtney Watson and Bryson and Joan, our lobbyists. The advocate piece, or the activism piece, as NAIFA Greater Washington, who's the former the former president of that, young guy. He says it well. He says that we have to be activists for our clients' best interest. And the bottom line to that is, Courtney is in our industry, and she listened to what our concerns are. And she is our advocate in Annapolis. She knows about the Department of Labor rule that's coming into the state level now under the fiduciary duty rule. She knows how that'll be disruptive. Having somebody like that Bryson and Joan have a great relationship with, that we can speak with, is really what NAIFA does. It's being able to help craft legislation in Annapolis and in Washington, D.C. People just got back from the PIC-PAC meeting in D.C. and had meetings with, on the national level, congressmen, senators, that really are impactful to our industry. And the last piece about differentiate, if you go on to NAIFA.org's website, you'll see Find an Advisor, you'll find your name. If you don't see your name on that, really there's a problem, because your clients are looking for you in places, and if they find out that you're a professional association, you're not a member, it's kind of like a lawyer not being a member of a bar association. This is not a guilt trip. This is just to say that when you're in a profession, you are expected to hold yourself out as a professional. The association and joining it is one way to do that. Certainly there are plenty others. So thank you for the time. Brian is in the middle of a conversation here. I want to bring him back up. I think we've covered the big piece. NAIFA educates us like today. They advocate for us all over the country as well as in each state, and they differentiate us in the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I want to bring up our lobbyists, Bryson Poppin and Joan Smith. And Bryson and Joan, for those of you who don't know, in our Annapolis office, Joan's also our executive director, wears a lot of hats. But the two of them are really our lead in all that we do here in the state of Maryland to make sure that we are doing what we need to do in all areas of planning. Our partnerships with some of the other associations, we have our liaisons here really across all those lines. So they're going to talk a little about what's happening really across the board. They're just going to just bring us up to date with where we are. We have the insurance commissioner coming a little bit later. Hopefully he'll be here next half hour or so. But we're going to hear from Bryson and Joan, and we're looking forward to knowing what we can do too as members to support the efforts. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mostly from Bryson.
My colleague, Ms. Smith, has accompanied me. I'll tell you why I use that term in a moment. First of all, Tracy, thank you for making our key presentation today. We're looking forward to this. I know, and no cracks, please, but I want to learn about Medicare too, along with the other folks. Advocate, educate, differentiate. You heard it from Bruce. And that is, in 3 words, that's the mission of NAIFA, NAIFA National, NAIFA Maryland. That's why we are here in this room, and that's why we have folks participating through Zoom. I have to give a shout out to our president, current and past, but let me focus on our current president at the moment, because he does so much to help NAIFA transition into this new environment that we're in. It's tough out there. I don't need to tell you that. And it's tough for trade associations too. Joan and I represent NAIFA and other trade associations in Annapolis. And trade associations are not immune from the economic trends that affect all business. We have to constantly demonstrate our value. And NAIFA has chosen 3 words very effectively: advocate, educate, differentiate. We're here to talk about the advocacy piece of this, so let me share an anecdote with you. Bruce just referred to it. These types of regional meetings are coupled with what we used to call targeted fundraisers, now we call special fundraisers. Every January, 188 senators and delegates come to Annapolis, and they consider 3,000 different ideas that will change your lives in every conceivable way. A lot of it has to do with insurance and financial services, and that's why we are there. But just want to underscore a couple of the points that Bruce made. We started this morning, as we have these other regional meetings, by having a special fundraiser for a legislator. For those of you who may think, well, we're just paying them off to curry favor with them, This is a relationship building exercise. Our greatest strength is the folks in this room and the folks who are watching on Zoom. It's the relationships that you have with our citizen legislators, and that's what we sought to do this morning with Delegate Watson. Delegate Courtney Watson, from right here in Columbia, Maryland, is, I think, the only insurance agent who is either in the House of Delegates or the whole General Assembly.
That's working.
That's active. She is a member of some of our producer association colleagues. She is intelligent, which is not a foregone conclusion when you're talking about legislators. They're just like the rest of us, you know. You get good ones and maybe not so good ones. Courtney's one of the good ones. And we spent a good hour with Courtney this morning. We didn't do a deep dive into our issues. Joan and I are going to talk about that in a moment. but we did cover them. Courtney knows better than many of the folks on her committee, which is the House Economic Matters Committee, what our issues are. Her, the 24 members, the 23 other members of that committee will look to her for her view on these issues, just as she looked to us in the hour that we spent with her this morning for our views on those issues. And I think those of you in the room who were there would agree with me that we strengthened an already positive relationship with Delegate Watson. I should also say I made a feeble attempt at humor when I introduced my colleague, Joan Smith here, as a person whom I used to introduce as my assistant, but now she's my colleague, and I heard that Delegate Watson muttered an aside to Joan as she left the room, well, of course you're his colleague.
It's
So
2020, for God's sake.
So now let me announce to you that my name is Bryson Popham. I work for Joan Smith here.
Batman Robin.
But really, I do want to spend a couple of moments just telling you about our respective roles. I say every time I speak to our members that I've been doing this not for years, but for decades. That's obvious, both by looking at me and by my expressed interest in Medicare. Joan really came our way in 2013 to be an executive director. And I mentioned at the outset of these remarks how life is changing for trade associations, because at that time, what NAIFA Maryland was looking for really was a meeting planner. That's it. And what's happened is she has become so much more. She truly is part of your advocacy team. Joan and I work together. We really are colleagues. She benefits you not just as your executive director, but also as your advocate right alongside of me all the time, every day. You're lucky to have her, and I know the folks in this room know that.
And she can sing.
And I can sing, yes.
And she can sing, and I can't sing. But that aside, educate, advocate, differentiate. Advocate from us is probably, well, I won't be shy about saying it. It's the most important of the three. NAIFA may disagree, but I think without our advocacy role, you guys are in peril. People ask me what the role of the lobbyist is, and I tell them it's to protect our clients against the depredations of a soulless and irrational state. You can tell I practiced that line. Some of you have heard me with that, but it's true. And those people really don't know, those 188 people in Annapolis really don't know. They're well-meaning people, but they don't know what we do. It's our role, in our advocacy role, to educate them as well. So we do our best to do that. The number one issue that we are facing today
Is Al Redmer.
is the commissioner, whom I will introduce in just a moment. The number one issue that we are facing today, we have recently formed a formal partnership with the American Council of Life Insurers, which is the trade association representing the big life companies. And it's the fiduciary standard issue. That's the only issue I'm going to talk about. But I had to get on a plane to Nashville last week, and Joan filled in for me quite nicely in addressing our conference in Washington, coupled with ACLI, to describe our coalition building role to, I was going to say fight this issue, that's not entirely correct, to educate legislators on the consequences of their actions. What does this do? If you don't know, I'm looking around the room, I hope most of you, if not all of you, know this, but if the General Assembly does what was proposed last year, and it imposes a fiduciary standard of liability on insurance agents, all insurance agents, for the services they provide, a couple of bad things are going to happen. One is your legal liability goes from here to here. So for those of you who have to buy E&O, that's going to have an effect on you. But more important, for those of you NAIFA members who are in the financial services business, who have products like, for example, variable annuities, those products at the low and moderate end of the market, if you are in that market, if you are not a fee-based advisor, those products will shrink in number and you won't be able to serve your clients well. We have taken that message to Maryland legislators. And if this is done on a state-by-state basis, as I mentioned in the earlier meeting, and as Commissioner Redmer knows, insurance companies that operate nationally, financial services companies that operate nationally, don't have to do business in Maryland if they don't want to. They can do business everywhere else. So that is a potential hazard that we face. When I was on the plane to Nashville last week, Joan addressed your colleagues and some of you.
Yeah, I was privileged enough to be on a panel in DC and talked about this because he couldn't be there. So it was really actually the first time I've been up in front of people and actually talking and saying something meaningful in terms for my NAIFA Maryland members. But Paul Dougherty was also on that
Another
panel.
former state and national president.
And then Leah Walters with ACLI was participating on the panel. Dilip was there. He took pictures. And let's see, Diane Boyle, who is the government relations person for NAIFA National, was also, she was the kind of the coordinator of the panel. And then her assistant, her new assistant, whose name is Julie Harrison. She's a new hire, and she's been hired just to go out to each state and make sure that they know what they're doing. The reason we were asked to be there was because apparently NAIFA Maryland is kind of a poster child for what all the other states should be doing on an advocacy level. We didn't know that. We thought we were chosen because we were bad.
Well, what Joan means by that is we formed a coalition on this issue last year, which was very successful and killed the bill in the Senate last year. Joan runs that coalition. So we are the pros from Dover when it comes to coalition building, and that's what Joan was talking about. Mm-hmm. But let me jump back in because I don't want to keep you from our next honored guest, and we truly are grateful to have him here. Al Redmer is one of us. He came out of the agency ranks. Al and I met when he first came to Annapolis as a delegate in 91. And we have been friends and colleagues ever since. And more than that, and I say this, I've said it in front of him, at the risk of being accused of shameless flattery, which I do admit to from time to time. But in this case, it's true. I've seen 40 plus years worth of insurance commissioners in Maryland. This is the best one we have. Now, he's had a couple of go-rounds to practice it, but this is his second time here. But he really understands the balance that has to take place. He has to permit the industry to flourish and offer its products, but he also has to protect consumers. And his agency does a good job with both. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Commissioner Al Redmer and welcome him to our
It's good to be here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Al. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you for having me. And for those of you that are watching online, if you've seen this a couple times, I may bore you, but I bore people frequently. But it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Bryson and Joan for inviting me. They do a great job in Annapolis. They have terrific relationships, and as Bryson said, he's been telling me what to do for about 30 years. First, let me begin by thanking you for what you do. As Bryson mentioned, our primary role is to protect Maryland consumers. And NAIFA's commitment to professionalism and education is noteworthy and appreciated, because to the extent that producers and professionals in Maryland are educated and professional, that makes our job so much easier. So we appreciate your commitment and thank you for what you do as an organization. I'm also going to make a plug for you to help Bryson and help Joan. He used the word coalition. As a former legislator myself, legislators know that hired guns are going to come to Annapolis and advocate for their clients. And that advocacy and that education for consumers is extremely important. But Bryson and Joan are only as good as the complementary work that you provide. If the legislators don't know that there is a robust, active membership that they're representing, their work is that much more difficult. So to the extent that you can help them in Annapolis by building and nurturing relationships with legislators and calling on them and educating them when necessary, that goes a long way to making Bryson and Joan's job, I don't want to say easier, but the results much better and more successful. So I'm just going to give a little update as to some of the issues that we are working on at the Insurance Administration, and then we can chat about whatever you'd like to chat about. Bryson talked about the fiduciary rule. We are active members of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and they've been dealing with this for a long time. So while, as you know, insurance is regulated on a state-by-state basis, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners spends a lot of time trying to create consistency and uniformity among the different states. And there's a lot of activity going on around annuity suitability. And the process is being led by a national group in Annapolis, at the NAIC. They have created a work group to look at this issue. We are very active participants. The work group created what is referred to as a proposed model law. When the NAIC adopts a model law, they then take it to all of the different states, or at least they give us the opportunity to take it to different states. Just this last week in Texas, the work group presented the proposed model law to the host committee, if you will. The host committee said thanks, but then referred it back to the work group for a little more work. So we are following that very, very closely. Also at the Insurance Administration, there are a number of local things that we are working on. We are preparing to review and perhaps modify the rebating laws in Maryland. That, as you know, it's illegal for producers or carriers to provide anything of value over a certain threshold as an inducement to purchase insurance. With the exponential growth in technology, that is creating conflicts between carriers wanting to provide technology to eliminate, reduce, mitigate risk. So as an example, if a homeowner's carrier wants to provide you a device to detect water in your basement, should that be considered an illegal inducement? We don't think so. If an life insurance carrier, and there's one out there that will maybe provide the technology to use with your Fitbit, and if you're able to demonstrate an active, healthy lifestyle, you may get a discount on your annual premium. Should that be considered an illegal inducement? Depending on the details, maybe not. So there's going to be legislation in to review and modify these anti-rebating laws, and we're going to support that effort. I can tell you though that as we do that, As always, our focus is going to be on protecting the consumer. So as an example, if a carrier wants to provide that water detection device to help you eliminate or mitigate a claim, if they then want to try to deny a claim because you did not use the device, we will not look on that favorably. So we will look at it as a way to benefit the consumer, but without any punitive actions on the back end. So more to come on that. On the health insurance side, there's always a lot of activity, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is an illness that afflicts children, referred to as PANDAS, P-A-N-D-A-S, not the bear, but it's an illness that affects children mostly that have been affected with a strep throat. So a child gets a strep throat, a day or two later has significant and dramatic symptoms, eating disorders, psychological issues, behavioral issues, and what happens is this infection somehow goes from the throat, finds its way to the brain, and has significant symptoms. And ironically, I had never heard of this before until last January, when I was contacted by a rabbi, I believe in Montgomery County, who had a number of instances at the synagogue. And so they started having claims denied because this is so new and unusual that naturally any treatment would be considered experimental or investigative. And so in any event, we've made a lot of headway on the carrier side as far as getting some of these claims covered, but I just wanted to mention it from a healthcare perspective so that if you know or hear of children having significant symptoms like that, especially after a strep throat, that you might remember the name PANDAS. With the Affordable Care Act, we are in a better place today than we were last year and the following year. If you recall, last year being 2018, the General Assembly authorized a 1332 waiver, which resulted in a reinsurance program in the individual marketplace. We saw a little more than a 20% decrease in the individual market for 2019. The results of enrollment and the claims experience were favorable, which resulted in a small double-digit decrease again going into 2020. The last number I saw, which as of last Friday, was that the open enrollment has seen an increase of 3% again this year. What remains to be seen is if they're the right 3%, meaning that they're healthy and have had good experience. But at the very least, the marketplace is stable going into January 2020. The rate increases approved by the administration in the small group market were low to mid single digit increases. So it was 3.5%, 4.5% on average. So we continue to have a competitive and stable small group market as well. Question.
Can I make a comment here?
Sure.
I want everybody in the room and online to know that I guess 2-3 years ago, we had a situation where the largest player in the individual market, I don't need to tell you who they are, you know, had announced its intention to offer products that would have no producer commission, zero. And that was something that we learned would have not just a disruptive effect, a devastating effect on the market. That did not happen. It did not happen largely because of the advocacy of Commissioner Redmer, who knew what the market effect would be. And I think it's worth remembering that, Alice.
Yeah, thank you. I still have Remember that fondly.
Are we good for next year on that point too?
Well, you know, you never know. You never know what the carriers are going to want to do. But it was challenging conversations to say the least. Also on the group side, you know, for the last few years we have had the SHOP program in Maryland, where if you have a certain number of employees below a certain average income, that an employer can receive tax benefits for providing coverage. That was first administered by, I think, 3 of the third-party administrators, then it went to 1. Then the exchange took ownership of it itself, and that program has never really ramped up. I think we still have only 800 or 900 lives statewide participating in the SHOP program. The exchange is looking to go to the federal government for another waiver that would allow, from a cash flow perspective, would allow the state to front end the tax credit. So, you know, if you're a small business and you have to lay out all the premium today in anticipation of getting a tax benefit the following April, that's not a real strong incentive to provide those benefits. So the thought is, the hope is that if they're able to provide that tax benefit up front on a cash flow basis, similar as they do with subsidies in the individual market, that might move the needle a little bit. So that process is currently ongoing. This year in Annapolis, we are going to seek permission to allow producers to roll over XSCE to the following term if they are enrolled in a designation program. So if you're studying for your CLU, your CHFC, and you roll up a lot of CE credits and you're going to renew, that you would be able to roll some of them over into the following 2-year cycle. Again, if you are in a designation program. We currently have a work group at the MIA where we are reviewing the captive industry. I don't know if anybody plays in that marketplace or not, probably not. But captives are an opportunity for an employer, if you're large enough, to basically set aside, to create your own insurance company for the purposes of insuring yourself. There are a lot of these captives around the country. We don't have any in Maryland because, quite frankly, our regulatory scheme is not favorable to them. So we're in the process of evaluating that to see if it makes sense to make Maryland more attractive. The hope is that these captives, when they form, bring jobs with them. Speaking of jobs, one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is trying to add competition to the Maryland marketplace, to have carriers come in and do business and hopefully bring jobs with them. We have been very successful over the last 4.5 years. We've added over 150 new carriers and additional lines of business in Maryland, which obviously brings competition, and competition is a good thing. An interesting sidebar, though, as I have talked to carriers about adding jobs to Maryland or maybe moving or creating offices in Maryland, I've learned that the national opinion is we don't have a strong enough workforce in Maryland. Now, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. If you're going to open a 200-person customer service center or some other kind of office, and you need to fill it with bodies, where are you going to get those employees for an insurance office? And step number one probably is to poach from your competitors that already have that qualified, trained workforce in that state. But if you think about it, in Maryland, we've lost we've lost a lot of those corporate insurance jobs due to mergers, acquisitions, and offices closing. So we don't have a real robust workforce in Maryland. The other thing I learned is that we don't have enough talent coming out of school. And I was embarrassed to learn, having been in this business my entire adult life, that in Maryland we've never had an insurance or risk management program. Never. As a matter of fact, the story that resonated with me the most is, there were a couple of instances, but Hartford Mutual, a domestic Maryland carrier located in Bel Air, Steve Linkus told me that every year they get about a dozen interns from Temple University. So here you have a Maryland-based domestic company getting interns every year from another state because it's not perceived that we've got the quality here in Maryland. So we set out to try to fix that. We knocked on doors for a long time. We finally found a willing partner with former Mayor Kurt Schmoke that runs the University of Baltimore, and this fall, for the first time, we've got, I think, about 10 students in the first insurance risk management program in the state. So we're excited about that and trying to promote it so that we can fill the pipeline for the next generation. And we have also, for those of you in the P&C business, reevaluated some of the our export list for surplus lines. So pending is the ability for private flood carriers to go right to clients to go right to the surplus lines market without calling State Farm or whoever. That has been submitted. It's currently going through AELR and should be in effect within the next couple of months. We are also reviewing surplus lines as it regards cyber security. While there is cybersecurity available in the admitted market, it's not as available as it should be based on the amount of coverage and the breadth of coverage. So we're evaluating whether to do that, and if so, what that criteria would look like. And then finally, I'll say that we spend a lot of time trying to identify, investigate, and prosecute insurance fraud. Insurance fraud is alive and well. We're seeing a exponential growth in organized insurance fraud. Now, if you think about it, if you're a bad guy and you want to engage in organized criminal activity, insurance fraud may not pay as well as drug dealing, but there's nobody shooting at you and that type of thing, so it's not a bad thing. Now, I'm not promoting this. I'm not advocating insurance fraud, but my point is there's a lot of it out there. We see it every single week, if not every day. One of the more entertaining parts of my job is to read the reports when they're done. As a matter of fact, I'll close with just a couple of stories. Billy Bob goes to Best Buy, buys $4,000 worth of computer equipment. Miraculously, a week or so later, it disappears. He files a claim with the insurance company, and as part of the process, he has to send in the receipt to demonstrate that he bought that $4,000 worth of equipment from Best Buy. The insurance company, the first thing they do is they call Best Buy to validate the fact that the receipt is for real. And Best Buy says, yeah, Billy Bob did buy the $4,000 worth of computer equipment, but he returned it for a full refund the next day. And tried to get away with it. Good try, didn't get away with it. We see them all the time where folks buy a auto policy, submit a claim, a day or two later to find out that the accident actually occurred a week or two before that. We see staged accidents all the time where they create accidents just out of the blue. And we actually have one on videotape, which is very entertaining. Not only did they stage the accident, But when they reviewed the coverage, there wasn't enough damage to demonstrate that I'm really that badly injured, so they had to do it again. They actually whacked this Jeep a second time. It's incredibly entertaining. And the last one I'll leave you with is the lady that had the cancer policy from Aflac. That's where this is a true story. Aflac contacts us. It was a cancer policy. Aflac contacts us after they paid the 15th claim. So this lady, like every month or two, would just make up a name of a kid that she didn't have and send it in, and they were sending checks. So 15 times. I actually called my contact at Aflac, and my comment was, it took 15? Because if you have 14 kids with cancer, that's bad luck. 15 must be a short story. It's like they're just shooting out shit. Now again, I'm not advocating this stuff, but it's really fascinating stuff. We spent a lot of time trying to identify it and prosecute. With that, I'm happy to talk about it. I don't know how much time we have for. Yeah, sure.
I know this, I'm not sure which one of these, which one you guys it would be, but there's some legislation for the balance billing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for emergency room doctors and
Sure.
anesthesiologists, and is there any, have they looked at it? That's
For
just-
those at home, why don't you repeat the question? So
Sure. The question was legislation regarding balanced billing, and that's at the federal level. The NAIC is an active participant. We're watching that very closely, but I have to tell you, we fixed that in Maryland a number of years ago, so we really don't see the complaints that they do around the country, and that includes these air ambulance issues. Now, we did have the issue with air ambulance, I think it was like 2016. The case that I remember the most was a gentleman, he was either going to the beach or coming back from the beach, had chest pains, goes to Easton Memorial. They flew him from Easton Memorial to the University of Maryland for cardiac surgery. It was a 12-minute helicopter ride. He got a $45,000 bill. Now, the dilemma, what we found out when we began looking at these was, number one, the hospitals didn't know anything about it, because the hospitals are not involved in the transaction. One hospital puts you on a helicopter, the other one takes you off, but they're not involved in the financial transactions, so they didn't know anything about it. And the other thing we learned was that the state can't regulate these helicopters, that they are preempted from state regulation as part of the federal deregulation of the airline industry. So they're commercial aircraft. They're completely exempt from state regulation. So our dilemma was, because they can't be regulated, they didn't want to accept the contracts from the health insurance carriers. So we had to, as we often do, we had to use charm and influence. So we regulate the insurance companies, so we've got a little charm and influence with the insurance companies, and then we brought in the legislators, legislative leadership, who obviously has relationships and charm and influence with the hospitals. So what ended up happening was that we encouraged the hospitals to bring the helicopter companies to the negotiating tables with the insurance companies. In other words, and I wasn't in the room, but if you don't have a contract, we may not send you our patients. So the good news is, in Maryland, that worked.
What's the exact legislation? What's the number?
I don't. As a matter of fact, I will send, I'm going to leave a couple of business cards. So send me an email, and I'll be happy to get that for you if anybody else has.
We can talk about it later also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for the commissioner?
I just have one, and I understand it might be something happening now or soon. Could you speak about, I know that NAIC reopened AG 49 and was looking into the, IUL, Index Universal Life, and the multipliers and things that are built into that. Could you tell us anything that's going on right now?
I don't know where that is. Again, send me an email and I'll get you the update. I know we've got somebody on that, that's following that, but yeah, I don't know where it is. Anybody else have a question I can't answer?
Where'd I put my keys?
I might. Can you shed some light on what's putting on ACO 2017, or what's the purpose of that? Where are we at, that kind of thing?
The ACOs.
What is the ACO
Well,
2017?
I'm saying ACO 2017. I think that's what they're calling it. It's where all the life carriers are revamping their
CSO.
CSO. Well, they're revamping their rates and had to be done by 2020.
So those are the actuarial tables, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that happens periodically based on changes in the mortality tables. I know that it's proceeding, and I don't know if they're all complete yet or not. I assume that they are. We have folks that follow that. I have not heard that there's any issues there.
But as we discussed with Delegate Watson a little while ago, whatever happens there, when a carrier has a new set of rates, they come to Commissioner Redmer's office for a thorough examination. So whatever the product is out of that, it's still reviewed at the Maryland level.
Yes, and we have actuaries on staff, and that's what they do is.
That's a federal level thing, or I guess that was a federal level?
Well, it's a federal level thing, but it has to be done at the state level.
Right.
So yeah, so it is rates are, even though there may be national standards in place, as there is with the Affordable Care Act, it is all executed at the state level. So as an example, the Affordable Care Act, every year, May 1st, the carriers have to come to us, present their proposed rates for January of the following year. Those standards are in law. The standards are the rates must be actuarially justified. They have to give us the data to demonstrate that they need the rates that they're requesting. The rates can't be excessive. They cannot be inadequate. We cannot knowingly allow them to charge too little for fear that it would put them in financial distress, which is a whole new, whole additional conversation. And then finally, they can't be unfairly discriminatory.
That's true for any insurance product.
Right.
So anyway, well, look, this has been a great discussion. I can tell you I've heard the commissioner's fraud stories a number of times now, and I can tell you this is a man who enjoys his job, obviously. So I want to thank him for
Hey, thank
coming
you.
out.
Appreciate
Always a
it.
pleasure.
Anytime.
We're lucky to have this guy.
If you have any follow-up questions, comments, just send me
And
that.
we're going to turn this back over to
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Jealous.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. Good seeing you.
Well done. Thank you so much. Okay, as we move on to the program, I'm going to ask those that are in the room, you guys can take a couple minute break, go to the back. Bathrooms are upstairs, right or left of the stairway. There's some chips and some apples and some snacks, just so you guys have something during our presentation, which is coming up shortly. I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware at home. So anyone, again, who wants to grab a snack, now's your time to go do that. For those of you at home that are zooming in, interestingly enough, the first NAIFA Live meeting of the year is going to be on using technology and taking advantage. This is a new way to do business with your clients, with your NAIFA, in a big way, both the national and on the state level. The first speaker is going to be Curtis Kersey. He's nationally known. He's a great speaker. He'll be talking. I'm not sure what state he'll be doing it, but we'll be having a Zoom, a place here in Howard County. So if you go to live.naifa.org, you can sign up. I've got 15 spots there. If we get a greater interest, we'll be using the room that you guys can't see today, but we could host 40 or 50 from around our region, right here in Howard County, if there's interest. We're going to do this once a month. We're going to have these host parties around the state. Again, we are looking for those interested in being a host location. If you're a New York Life, a Northwestern Mutual office, or any of the major offices that have conference space available that could donate that opportunity and bring some of our members in from around your area, that would be very much appreciated. So Curtis Kersey, making sure that you're taking advantage of the technology and using that, leveraging that for your business and for your opportunities to help your clients. With that, I do the other two dates. That's January 9th, 2:00. I want to bring our executive director back up. She's going to talk about something really important that's also coming up in January.
Yeah, just quickly there.
Yeah,
right?
go ahead. Yep.
Quickly, we have an event on January 13th. It's a Monday, and it's called Evening in Annapolis. It's an annual event we have that includes the invitation to all 188 legislators. Usually we have between 30 and 35 legislators show up. Sometimes 75 to 150 people register for that. But that's coming up on January 13th, and I highly recommend that you register for that now so that we know how many people are going to be there. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, so I finally just want to, once again, for those of you who are tuning in now, maybe didn't hear it earlier, I do want to once again thank particularly our sponsor partnership relationships. There are three in particular for NAIFA Maryland. Bellman Klein, we have Scott Silver who's in the room. Scott does an outstanding job with his organization, really being a backroom for your disability and life insurance needs. They do a great job being a resource. And again, I want to emphasize the partnership relationship is about providing that level of education, being a resource that you can call, and to keep you on the cutting edge of what's happening in our industry in those areas. Secondly, AXA Equitable. Michael Z, if you need to understand annuities, whether again you're a financial advisor or not, whether you're licensed for annuities or not, you should understand how they fit into potentially a successful retirement. Michael Z will help you understand that and be a great resource. And finally, HTA. We got Tracy Russo. She's going to be our speaker. We're going to ask her to come up in just a couple seconds. But I do want to say again, that's the Medicare experts and that we have for years. Again, Brian Jollis, I'm the current president, and actually the president of Jollis Insurance and Financial is here in the room, my wife Lisa Jollis. But I am the current president of NAIFA Maryland, and I've used Tracy's services and her organization. Whenever we have clients that are asking about Medicare and I want that resource, that's who we turn to. So I do want to thank Tracy for making the journey down here to educate us in person, but also to make sure that you have the opportunity wherever you are, whether it's at your place of business or your home. If you've got a phone or a way to link into the internet, then you can hear Tracy's presentation. Also want to tell you, we're going to be sending this around to the entire membership. We are recording it. For those of you who zoomed in live, we really do appreciate it. Always good when we have members here in person. So whenever possible, we are going to ask you to make that effort. There's a lot of reasons for it. First of all, you'll benefit from the synergy of those that are here and the opportunity to share a little more than what you could get by just tuning in online. Secondly, is it supports our organization. We do bring guests. We want them to see the energy that we have as an organization and to meet us personally, not just our board and our executive team, but fellow members from around the state. So if you're close enough to make it to a regional meeting in person, we hope that you'll attend. But finally, open your emails. We're going to be sending around the blast. It's going to have a very important email. It's a survey. We want to make sure that you're understanding how to use this technology. We want to make sure that you understand the value of your NAIFA membership and what we're trying to do to provide more than you've ever had going into 2020. So look for the survey, open the email. When you click on this Zoom presentation, when we send it back out again, we will give you a timeline so that you're able to go directly to the Insurance Commissioner's remarks. You'll hear about our sponsor partner relationships. You'll hear about our speaker in our presentation today, but you'll be able to find what you're looking for as we hold these meetings, the way we're sending it back out to you. So thanks again for tuning in. With no further ado, I think we are going to introduce our speaker, Tracy Russo, HTA, coming to us from Pennsylvania. They have the opportunity to help people across not only our state, but across the country, a wide array of products, but today is really going to be about the benefit itself and how you help your clients to understand when and how to utilize Medicare. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker, our partner sponsor, Tracy Russo. Thank you, Tracy. Let's hear it for Tracy. You're looking really at two.
Oh, it's there.
Hi, guys.
You're looking at these guys here, and then this guy here.
And then
we have
I need my clicker.
and you have your clicker, and it is on. You're good.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Good morning online. My name is Tracy Russo. I don't want to be right up in your face. Today I'm here to talk to you about Medicare, the different parts and pieces of Medicare, what they cost, what they cover, and enrollment timelines as they revolve around Medicare, because we do find that a lot of our clients have questions. And there is a huge population of our clients that are either approaching age 65 or have recently passed age 65. And what you can see by this graph here is the millions of people over the next 15 years that are going to be having Medicare questions because they're either going to be approaching age 65 or retiring. So if you have not had any of your existing clients approach you with Medicare questions yet, I can almost guarantee you that they will. And you honestly, you want them asking you these questions because you want to be their trusted resource. Even if you don't offer Medicare or want anything to do with Medicare, you want them to think of you as their go-to. Where do I go to either get referred to somebody I can trust or to get answers I can trust? So just to give you a little bit of a heads up of what I do and what HTA does as it relates to insurance agents and advisors, we can either be your back office, your wholesaler, your MGA for Medicare. If you want to get involved in Medicare, if you see the opportunity because of the individuals that are approaching this age range and you say, you know, I want to add this to my portfolio, or maybe you're already doing Medicare, but you're just looking for a quality resource as a back office, somebody to make product recommendations, give you advice on enrollment periods, when your clients should and shouldn't be enrolling. We can provide that to you, get you appointed with any of our 45 different insurance companies. We have one set of appointment paperwork that you fill out, and you can get appointed with as many carriers as you'd like and get commissions on it and use us as your back office. But the other thing that we do is we provide a client services team. Over the years, we have found that a lot of financial advisors in particular, or advisors that are specializing in certain areas, annuities, life insurance, they don't want to be involved in the complexities of Medicare. Why jeopardize a solid client relationship by giving improper advice on a topic that you don't even deal with? So many of our financial advisors in particular have said, can't you just provide us a resource that our clients can call and you can help them directly? Why do I have to be involved? So we have two teams. We have an advisor services team that becomes your back office and you do the work and we help you with it. We have a client services team where you say, nope, I'm hands off. I just want somewhere that my clients can go for accurate advice. You can send them over to our client services team to help them. And those are two different teams in our office. So depending on how you like to operate would depend on the individuals you would get to know. And you can also do it on a case-by-case basis. We have some guys, especially tax guys, that say, okay, I'm gonna do Medicare all year round, but when tax season comes, I don't have time. I'm just gonna send you my people, anybody who needs help the first quarter of the year, but the rest of the year I'm gonna do it. That's fine with us too. We're flexible, we wanna work with you and how you wanted to be worked with. So from our advisor services team, we have professional case prep for you. We have a free quoting tool where you can quote over 30, 40 different insurance carriers to see their prices. We have a very responsive back office. We handle all of our agents with very much care, sometimes too much care, but very much care, and the single application licensing. If you work with our client services team, most of the people that are doing that is to keep your key focus on what you specialize in, not getting confused. But with all of the Medicare information out there, you want to make sure that your clients are getting expert answers, quality answers, accurate answers, because there's a lot of information out there that's coming out inaccurately, unfortunately sometimes even from government locations. So knowing that your clients are getting proper advice, and also advice from a resource that has no vested interest in talking to them about anything besides Medicare. We're Medicare specialists, this is all we do. If something else comes up, the first thing we're gonna do is say, we're working with your advisor here. Between your advisor and us, somebody's gonna get back to you. And the first thing we're gonna do is give you a call and say, your client asked about an annuity or long-term care or retirement income planning. Would you like to get back to them on that? Do you have somebody you're working with on that, or do you handle that? And then it's up to you to get back. So we're looking out for your best interest, not trying to talk to them about anything else as well. Okay, so starting from the very beginning, I understand we have about an hour this morning, so I'm going to throw a ton of information at you. What I have up here for those of you that are in the room, I have a little cheat sheet if you want to take one with you. It's the 2019 version. I don't have my 2020 version updated just yet. Maybe I can set these here, Brian, and you can hand out a few. Basically, this is the overview of the Medicare system. One thing that we really like to do is simplify. If you could put Medicare and simple in a single sentence, which I don't think is possible, that's what we are trying to achieve. We're trying to personalize and simplify the Medicare experience. So you'll notice that we've created, and I'm going to show you throughout the presentation, a lot of resources that you can use, or that we would use with your clients directly if you sent them over to us for help, that really tries to zone in on the important factors, because if you Google Medicare, There's probably what, 200, 500, a million pages of Medicare information, and the biggest thing people have is that they start researching it, and then they get so overwhelmed with the amount of information and the amount of different answers they're getting to the same questions that they just kind of shut down and say, I don't know what to do. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to keep things simple, one-page highlight sheets to make it really easy to understand. So just starting from the beginning, what is Medicare? Medicare is the health insurance that becomes available to you, your clients, your family, your friends, anybody when they become 65. The only requirement to qualify for Medicare is that you have to be a permanent citizen of the United States and have lived here for at least the past 5 years. As long as you meet that qualification, at age 65, you are eligible for Medicare. So you have a decision to make, and your clients have a decision to make. Do I enroll at age 65, like all the threatening literature says I have to do? Because if any of you have approached that age or have clients that approach that age, it is not fun. I mean, I'm talking mail this deep on their dining room table. It's solicitation after solicitation hidden by some crafty marketing schemes to make it look government official. So people are getting things that say deadlines, penalties, must enroll. And they're saying, well, wait a second, I'm still working, I have my group health insurance, why all these threats in the mail? And then on top of it, they're getting solicited 6, 8, 10, 15 phone calls a day from people trying to sell them, from high volume Medicare call centers trying to sell them whatever product they're selling that day. So everybody kind of has an agenda with all of this literature that's going out, and the agenda is to get them on that phone with that commission salesperson. Now, I'm not putting down commission salespeople. A lot of us work on commission here. But it seems like some of these high volume call centers have an agenda. The agenda is to sell the product. It's not necessarily to get the client the holistic information they need. And I'm going to share a situation just kind of talking about that. My cousin works for one of the large Medicare Advantage companies. She's down in Texas. And I asked her what she thought about Medicare supplement plans. And she goes, oh, I work in the Medicare Advantage department. We are not allowed to know about Medicare supplements. If we ask about Medicare supplements, we get in trouble. Because they do not want their Medicare Advantage salespeople to know what the other options are to be able to educate the client on their decisions. They want them to know what the good points are of this particular Advantage plan that they're trying to sell. So that was a personal experience with my own cousin down in Texas. She's been doing this call center now for 2 years, and she has no idea what a Medicare supplement is or how it works. But she can tell me for an hour how great the Medicare Advantage plans are for this particular company. So anyway, there's a lot of information coming to your clients. They have a decision to make. Do I enroll like the threatening literature says I have to, or do I have a valid reason to defer? One of the big misunderstandings that many of our clients have is they think Medicare has something to do with normal retirement age. So my normal retirement age is 66 or 66 and a half. I don't have to think about this now. Well, that doesn't pertain to Medicare. That's for Social Security income. Medicare, the qualification age is age 65. So when you set up your retirement health care program, there's going to be multiple parts and pieces needed to have comprehensive health insurance. And that's what I have highlighted on that little handout that I gave you as well. There's going to be 4 main parts and pieces that somebody has in place to provide comprehensive health insurance. Medicare A and B through the federal government. Medicare C, which is Medicare Advantage, or you have the option to choose Medicare Supplement, otherwise known as Medigap insurance. And then the D is for the drug portion of Medicare. So when everything's said and done, you're going to have some variation of A, B, C, and D to have your comprehensive health care. So we're going to break this down piece by piece. So starting with the federal government program, you have Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A is for inpatient hospital stays. So A for hospital, A for admission into the hospital. If you're admitted into the hospital, that's going to be Part A. And for most people, Part A is free. The only thing that you have to do to get Part A for free is pay Medicare taxes. So as long as myself or my spouse has paid at least 10 years or 40 quarters of Medicare taxes, Part A is free for me. Now, Medicare Part B is the outpatient piece of Medicare. So things like doctor specialists, labs, x-rays, MRIs, surgeries, chemo, even things that you go to the hospital for but you're not admitted for, like emergency room treatment or if you're being observed in the hospital, all of that's outpatient and falls under Part B. And the standard rate, so Part B has a cost. Everybody pays for Part B unless they qualify for Medicaid or state financial assistance. Then the state would cover that Part B cost for you. But everyone else is gonna pay. And the going rate for Part B for next year is $144.60 per month per person. So that slider that you guys have, it has different numbers on there because those are the 2019 numbers. That number is dependent on your client's income. So a couple things to know about this, especially if you're doing retirement planning, income planning, to see what their income is going to be on their tax return over the next couple of years. It could have an impact on what they have to pay for Medicare. So a couple things to consider. Number one, when Medicare looks at your income, to be more specific, with Social Security, the Social Security Administration looks at your income when you enroll, they're looking at your income tax return from 2 years ago. So right now, for those in 2020, the premium is based on their 2018 income. So as people retire and their income goes down, that's not necessarily reflected in their Medicare premium right away. They may be issued a higher Medicare premium out of the gate because it's based on their working income. So a couple things they can do there. Number one, they can just wait, because every year the income's reviewed. So if they retire in 2020, Medicare's going to figure that out in 2022. So eventually the Medicare premiums will go down because each year there's an automated review. Or probably in their better interest would be to file an appeal form. The appeal form is called a life event form, and part of what we do and part of what we would counsel you to do if you were going to talk to your clients directly about Medicare is if you find out that their income, we provide the income brackets, where do you think you fell in 2018? How do you think that's going to change for 2020? If you think it's going down, we recommend that you file this form. And any form that I mentioned, guys, regardless of if it's a carrier form, Social Security form, we provide all of these forms. You don't need to go out and find them. But they can file a form that says, I've reduced my work, or I've stopped working, and here's what I anticipate my income to be. And the federal government will take that into consideration, reduce their Medicare premiums, and then 2 years later, when they actually do the review, they'll settle up. If you made more, they're going to come back and charge you more. But if you made less and you actually should have been in a lower income bracket, they won't charge you, they won't come back and pay you back. So we always recommend that people file the form, try to get their premiums reduced. And you know, at the very worst, we're not saying misrepresent on the form and quote a low income. Don't misunderstand. But you know, if they happen to quote a little bit under and we're bumped into a different bracket, we've already had clients get the balance bill to settle up the difference between the two brackets for the year.
What's the name of the form?
The name of the form, I think it's SSA-44. It's called a life event form. And if anybody, I have my business cards up here, or you can hand me your business card and just write on the back, or you can send an email to NAIFA. I'm sure Brian would be more than willing to accept my emails on my behalf. But just say, Tracy mentioned this form or that form, I'd like to have a copy. Not only will we provide you the form, but we will provide you the template email that we put together when we email that form out to clients, and the language that we tell them on how to file it and why it's important. You will get all of that information as well. Yes?
It's adjusted gross income.
It's based on modified adjusted gross income. So the best estimate our clients can see as to what income is being looked at is their AGI, because that's what's on the tax return. But technically speaking, they're looking at modified AGI. So just think of that when we're cashing in 401ks, IRAs, capital gains, all of those things are included in there. Our clients that get a big, a bonus when they retire, some kind of severance pay or something like that, those are all factors that could influence their Medicare premium over the years. Yes?
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, how are you?
Fine. So I'm just trying to understand the chart. So a married couple filing separately, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if you're filing as a household, this is your column here. It doesn't matter who the breadwinner is in the household. You file as a household, both husband and wife or both spouses pay the same premium. If you married, filed separately, and you fall into one of these middle income brackets, it's unfortunate because you're penalized. They only have a couple income brackets for the married file separately.
That's what I was trying to make sure. So if I'm married, filing separately, and I make $95,000.
Yep, you're either in the base income bracket or you're all the way down at the bottom. There's really no in between for the married file separately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Medicare covers most of your major medical expenses, but it doesn't pay for everything. I've highlighted the ones in blue that tend to be the most shocking to our clients. Good for them though, because there's individual types of insurance that cover those things. You guys know about long-term care insurance. You probably already know, if you're in the long-term care space, that Medicare only provides for skilled rehab, not for custodial care. So this is a great opportunity to talk about long-term care. And by the way, if a client did bring up long-term care to us, the first thing that we would do is refer them back to their advisor or reach out to their advisor and say your client has questions about this. And then there's dental, vision, and hearing aid coverage available to them as well. I don't know how many of you have sold dental or vision coverage, but there's a real consideration there between the premium you're paying for dental and vision coverage versus the benefits you're actually getting. So we like to have honest conversations with the client saying, you know, here's the pros and cons of these types of plans. Make an educated decision on what makes sense, not just they ask for dental insurance, let's sell them because it's a commission or a product. All right, so the biggest concern that we've run into, and actually what we've built our whole agency and our whole educational practice around, is the when. When do I need to go into Medicare? Because more people are working past age 65 now, so they don't necessarily need Medicare at 65 because they still have access to group benefits. Many people have younger spouses, dependent spouses, so even if they go into Medicare, they have an under 65 spouse that doesn't yet qualify. So all of these things need to be taken into consideration when determining when is the proper timing for Medicare. And we call this whole program Your Roadmap to Medicare. And it's basically a free consultation program. We can teach you guys how to do it. We can do it for you, whatever you prefer. But basically, we would recommend that your clients be talking to somebody at age 64. The mail is going to start flowing, well, now with AARP, the mail flows at 50, but the mail is going to start flowing in really at 64 and a half. That's when their name is sold to everybody. And it has big, threatening, bold messages, penalties, deadlines, must enroll. And they tend to get very anxious and scared. So reaching out to them before, we've created emails and letters saying, hey, just noticed you've had a birthday. You're going to be approached with all of this literature just to let you know we can help answer those questions, or we have a quality resource for you that can help answer those questions so you don't have to go through this alone. Because letting them know what's going to happen and what their concerns should be in advance will reduce a lot of anxiety when they start getting all of that literature in the mail. And everybody's situation is just a little bit different. So getting help from family, friends, they have good advice, they try. We know this in the financial services world too. My brother said to go with this, or said, well, what do they do for a living? Oh, she's a dentist. Well, then she must know the best investment to buy then, because she's an expert in that. So we get that same thing in the Medicare world. So this is just a visual, what we've created, and I'm actually very excited about this. I've been working on it for 2 years. It was formally released mid-year of 2019. These are our roadmap to Medicare pages. So basically, by asking like 6 or 8 defined questions, are you going to keep working? What size is your employer group? Do you have a health savings account? Do you have a spouse under 65? Do you have access to retiree benefits, COBRA? All of these things get taken into consideration. And based on their mix of answers, I worked with an IT guy. We put together all the different combinations of what kind of answers could be answered. Depending on how they answer, a web page spits out. And the web page tells them, based on this situation, will I receive a penalty? Yes or no? Here's why. And if you click on these gray boxes right here, so it's going to tell you, and this is a little blurry, but will you receive a penalty if I don't enroll? The answer is no for this particular situation. It tells them in a sentence why, but then if you click on the gray button underneath, it provides all of the legal information on that too. The Medicare Part A penalties, the Part B penalties. You click on the link, you read it right on Medicare's webpage. So we have a simplified version that answers their questions, yes or no, with a short answer as to why, and an expandable view giving them all of the legal reasons as to why we're providing those answers so they know that this is accurate expert advice. And then you see this little thing right here? That is their roadmap to Medicare. Like I said, we do everything in one-page simplified sheets that will definitively tell them if they need to enroll or if they're eligible for deferral at 65 and why, and what their game plan is. So we call this your roadmap to Medicare. We make these web pages available to our agents if they work with us for free, and we certainly provide all of this information to clients if they were to call in. So a lot of people think Medicare enrollment is automatic when you turn 65, and it may or may not be depending on your situation. So if you're already collecting Social Security income when you turn 65, you will be automatically enrolled in Medicare because the government's just going to take that Medicare premium right out of your Social Security income. So if you find out that you have a valid reason to defer that Medicare, you simply return the card and say, no thank you. You know, there's a little spot you fill out if you don't want it, and they'll remove the Part B, the part that you pay for. If you're collecting Social Security income, you can't get rid of the free Part A, but they'll remove the Part B, which is what you're paying for. If you're not collecting Social Security income, then you will not be enrolled in Medicare. There's no automatic enrollment. If you want to enroll in the free Part A and or the for cost Part B, you physically have to take action. You have to go online and enroll. And that's also something we would provide the website directly to that enrollment link on Social Security's website. So if you don't want Medicare, or you more accurately, you don't need Medicare at 65, you have a valid reason to defer, just simply don't enroll. If you don't enroll, you've deferred. Nobody's going to ask you why. Nobody's going to ask you for proof until you go to enroll later, and that's when they'll figure out why you didn't enroll at 65. So this choice, do I enroll or don't I enroll, cannot be taken lightly, because as the literature says, there could be deadlines, there could be penalties, there could be holes in your coverage if you fall into a category of someone who's required to enroll in Medicare and you don't. So let's talk about what credible coverage is, because if you don't have credible coverage when you turn 65, you will acquire those penalties and deadlines for not enrolling. So credible coverage as per Medicare standards, in order to legally defer your Medicare without all of those negative repercussions, you need to have group health insurance based on current active employment. So it can't just be group health insurance. Let me give you an example, especially from where we're located down here. We have people that are retired government employees. They have a group retiree plan from their government job that they used to have. But they've started a new life and now they have a new job. So they're actively employed at their new employer and they have group benefits, but from their old employer. That doesn't qualify because it has to be group benefits based on your current active employment. So as long as you or your spouse is employed and you guys are both covered from that employer group health plan, then you do have credible coverage for Medicare deferrals. No penalties, no deadlines. So non-credible would be ACA, Obamacare individual plans because they don't meet the group requirement, or non-credible would be plans not based on active employment, like retiree plans, COBRA, severance plans. If you have employers that tend to provide some kind of severance package to those that retire, maybe executive package to somebody that leaves. We hear it all the time. Oh, my employer's providing me benefits for the next year. They're going to pay for my health insurance. They're going to leave me on the group health plan as part of my retirement package. Well, that's great. However, that's not considered credible coverage for Medicare. So they may be providing you group benefits, but when you go to enroll in Medicare later, you're going to get yourself in trouble because it wasn't credible coverage to not take Medicare. So if you work with employers that do this, a better suggestion would be, we're going to provide you this amount of money to provide your own benefits for the next year. So, and it's a win-win because the employer ends up saving money because Medicare is going to be cheaper than whatever they're paying for that employee on that group plan. And it's going to be a win for the employee or the retiree because they had to enroll in Medicare anyway, so they didn't get in trouble. And so that would have been an extra expense for them if the employer didn't do it the other way. So we've worked really hard to educate employers on types of things that they can do as their employees retire to take better care of them, be more cost effective for the company, and to not put anybody in a situation. Because I'll tell you what, this employee that's getting that severance package doesn't know to ask, is this credible for Medicare? They just say, I have benefits. I don't need to think about this for the next year. And then when they go to enroll in Medicare later, they find out that they can't get in, or they have to wait, or they have to pay more for it because they didn't know. Okay, so if somebody has credible coverage, coverage. They will not receive a penalty if they don't enroll at 65. They'll have 8 months from the time their group health coverage ends to get involved into the Medicare program. And remember I said, when you didn't enroll at 65, you didn't have to tell anybody why. But now we're 68 and we're enrolling. Now we have to tell people why we didn't take it at 65. So that's this form right here. This is an employment verification form, and again, provided by Social Security, but we can email it to you if you want it. This form asks 2 important questions. Dates the primary insured was employed, and dates that the primary insured and their dependents had coverage. This works as your ticket in the door to Medicare. As long as you were employed and covered, or your spouse was employed and you were covered under their plan, from the time you're 65 to the time you show up at Social Security, you hand that paper in and they say, great, when do you want to start? So it's a 1-page form you hand in, which will get you right in the door. Now, another consideration, in addition to the deadlines and the penalties, is actually, will I have full coverage at 65? And you guys are actually in a very unique state in the whole United States with Care First down here in Maryland. Because typically the Medicare law, which almost every group health insurer follows, is that if your company has more than 20 employees, as long as you're employed, your group health insurance is primary. So if you work in a large company, it doesn't matter while you're working. You don't need Medicare, your group health insurance is going to remain primary as long as you're working. Even if you enrolled in Medicare, it's going to sit behind your group health insurance if you keep it, so there's really not a need for Medicare if they like your group health plan. But for the small groups, the under 20 employees, in every state in the United States except for Maryland, with every company I've checked with except for Care First, if they're under 20 employees, Medicare becomes their primary insurance when they're 65. So even if they have group coverage based on active employment, if that employer is a small employer, they might not get penalties or deadlines, but their group coverage may take a secondary payer position, meaning if they don't put Medicare in front of it, they don't have full coverage anymore. Now, almost every Care First plan I've seen, regardless of group size, does not follow that and they remain primary, and people have been able to get that in writing from Care First, but we always recommend if somebody's in Maryland to go back and get it in writing before they make an assumption that they're fine. Yes?
Do you have any idea why Care First is the only carrier that does that?
It's the only state.
Yeah, because all of the other big name carriers, the blues, all the other territorial blues, go by this primary payer rule. United Healthcare, Aetna, they all go by this primary payer rule. The only thing I've been able to find, and I don't know this for certain, but this is what I saw, somehow they have their small groups. It appears that they're kind of put together in like almost like an association, like they've pulled all their small groups together to make a large group contract. And I might not be 100% accurate on my understanding of that, but that was one of the answers I gave one time. It's almost like it's an association plan where they look at it as a large group because it's several small groups put together. But honestly, I don't know for sure. So I always tell the client or the agent, if the carrier is willing to provide it in writing that they'll remain primary payer, even if you're over 65, then don't worry about Medicare for now. If they aren't willing to put it in writing, even if they tell it to you, you don't want to find out. We've had an individual he had a hospital observation. He wasn't admitted. He had a hospital observation. $105,000. He didn't have Medicare as primary. Medicare would have paid 80%. His group health insurance carrier said, we'll pay 20%. The rest of it's your responsibility if you don't have Medicare. So we had to file for a special exception to get Medicaid, state financial assistance. It was this big to-do. Fortunately, he ended up getting the money from Medicaid under special circumstances, but you know, they followed that rule and they said, if you don't have Medicare as your primary insurer, you are the primary insurer. So the other thing that we hear, probably the most frequent thing we hear is, I know I can defer the Part B, but the Part A is free, and I was told by my mother, my sister, my brother, my friend that I need to have Part A or I'm going to get a penalty. Well, think about it this way. Part A costs $0. What's 20% of $0? Yeah, so that's the way I remember it, okay? You can't penalize nothing, right? So if you qualify for free Part A, meaning you've paid your Medicare taxes, you can enroll in Part A at 65 or any time thereafter with no penalty. Obviously, if you don't have proper coverage, you'd want it anyway, but you won't get a penalty for not enrolling. And there would be one, so a lot of people say, well, so what, it's free, let me take it. There's two reasons why people don't take Part A at 65 even though it's free. Number one is they just simply don't feel like going online and enrolling in it. Why do it? I'm not going to use it. It's just going to sit in my drawer, so they just don't. The other one is if you have a health savings account. If you have a health savings account and you're actively contributing to that health savings account, you can no longer make deposits into that savings account once you enroll in Medicare Part A. The way the HSA rules look at it is they consider Medicare Part A first dollar coverage, not a high deductible health plan. So by simply adding the free Part A that's not going to hurt you, it actually hurts you in this respect. You can't make deposits into your HSA account any longer. And then one thing to keep in mind, I don't know if anybody in here does group health insurance or even has clients on HSA plans, but one thing to keep in mind here is when you do enroll in Medicare Part A later, so let's say I wait till I'm 68, I like my HSA, I'm max funding it, I'm putting in the extra amount, I'm saving a lot of money. Good news is we can use all this money for our Medicare expenses later, so it's a great retirement tax-free savings vehicle for healthcare expenses. But now I'm 68, I'm enrolling in Medicare. When I enroll in Medicare Part A, they backdate it 6 months. So knowing in advance, talking to people at age 64, getting to know what the landscape is of their group health insurance plan and what's to come can help them plan better, because what we would say if someone says, I have an HSA, I'm going to work for another 3 years, I'd say, get in touch with me a year in advance because we need to talk through your HSA deposits for that year you plan to retire to make sure that you don't accidentally overfund. And just so you know, and we have a whole write-up on this, and if you have anybody in this situation, we'll forward you all the language that you can tell them with the links and everything. All of the information we have over the year, we've created all these different emails with all of the details. So if you say I have a client that has HSA, what do I need to tell them? I'll forward you an email written directly to them that you can just forward them, and it says everything they need to know and links it up with all of the official language as well. So anything that we have, we will share with you. But just so you guys know, if somebody was to enroll in Medicare later, let's just say they had a 6/1 start date for their Medicare Part A. It's not that they can't make HSA deposits after June 1st for that year. It's that they can't make more than 5/12 of the maximum deposit amount for that year because they were in a non-Medicare plan January through May, and then they had Medicare starting in June, so they can't deposit more than, it's a prorated deposit. They can deposit after they're enrolled in Medicare in that tax year, just not more than the maximum amount prorated for the number of months they work in it. Is that, or not in it? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so if they don't have credible coverage, so for your self-employed folks or people that maybe retired early on individual plans, or they're on retiree coverage, maybe some of your federal government retirees, which is a little bit of a unique situation, and I'm happy to address that, but maybe at the end if we have time. Anybody in this category, they would need Medicare at age 65 because they'll be penalized. There's a 7-month enrollment window that they need to enroll by, 3 months before their 65th birthday, the month of their 65th birthday, and 3 months following. And one thing that I just want to bring up about this is Medicare rules are so goofy that certain times people get themselves into trouble, and this is one of the situations. Do you ever have somebody that retires around their 65th birthday, but not quite on their 65th birthday? So this came up a lot. In fact, I saw it twice this year with 2 of my agents, and I've seen it in previous years too, where people's birthdays are in like October, November, September, but they're retiring at the end of this year. So the agent says, I know you turned 65 in October, you have the 7 months to enroll, but we want you to start January 1. So what we're going to have you do instead is we're just going to have you bring this form in and say, well, I had group coverage till the end of the year, enroll me for 1/1. Well, that doesn't work because that 7-month window trumps everything else. So we had an individual whose birthday was in October. He went down to the Social Security office in December with his form and said, I'm retiring at the end of this month. I want to enroll in Medicare for January 1. They said, I'm sorry, sir. This form is no good. You're still within 3 months after your birthday month. You need to go home and enroll online today to get your Medicare. But guess what? You're enrolling online 2 months after your birthday month. So your coverage isn't going to start January 1. It's not going to start February 1. It's going to start March 1 because there's a 3-month delay because you enrolled after your birthday. So this poor gentleman who thought they had coverage starting January 1 isn't going to be able to get into coverage till March 1. I've seen it happen a number of times. So again, I think the moral of the story is the more we know in advance, the more we can help our clients plan at 64 what this timeline is going to look like, the less we're going to run into situations where somebody's in a period of time where they can't get coverage or they're paying too much for coverage. We can kind of work all those details out by doing some proper planning. And again, individual coverage, retiree coverage, typically Medicare's primary, so even if you had these plans, if you didn't take Medicare, it wouldn't be full coverage for you anyway once you turn 65. Yeah, the big thing there is with COBRA. A lot of people say, okay, well my wife's still under 65, let me just enroll in COBRA until my wife turns 65, and then I'll take Medicare at the same time she takes Medicare. Well, COBRA is considered secondary to Medicare in most situations, so you may have COBRA, but you don't avoid any of these other problems, penalties, deadlines, and lack of coverage. So we have to understand why our clients are so stressed and anxious about this, because there's so many different variables and they've probably gotten different advice from different people. But bottom line, if your clients are still working, covered under their current employer's group plan, and have more than 20 employees, they can definitely defer Medicare at 65 and stay on their group health plan if they want to. If they're working group coverage but smaller employer, most places they may want Medicare for group coverage or to have the full coverage. Care First might be a slightly different situation. We always handle that on a case-by-case basis. And then the yes people, individual coverage, retiree plans, COBRA, severance, all of that kind of stuff definitely need Medicare at 65. So then the next question for any of you that are in group health insurance is, well, I just discovered I can keep my group health plan. Would there be any reason why I may want Medicare instead? Because at 65, it becomes my choice. And so everybody's going to have an opportunity to get off the group health plan when they turn 65. It's a life event if they want to go into Medicare. They also have an opportunity at each annual renewal with their group health insurance to opt out and go into Medicare. And I would say almost every single employer that I've talked to, I think out of hundreds of employers, I've only had 2 employers that did not offer this as a valid opt-out or a valid life event, enrollment in Medicare. Most employers know that their over 65 population is the expensive population on their group health plan. So they make it easy for these people to get off the group health plan anytime they want to. So most employers consider simply enrolling in Medicare. It could be a random February at age 67 and I just decide I want Medicare. Most employers will consider that a life event to opt out of the group health plan and go into Medicare. So what we do is we need to look at the costs. How are my benefits under my group health plan and what are my costs under my group health plan? Premiums, deductibles, co-pays, everything that we pay for medical care and to have the insurance. Do I think that that number is more or less than, on average, $300 a month? Or more or less than $3,600 a year on average? If my group health plan is cheaper than $3,600 a year, then my group health plan is going to be more cost effective. But if it's more expensive than that, maybe my premiums are okay, but maybe I have a high deductible plan and I'm frequently meeting that deductible, well then maybe Medicare is going to be better for them. So we always tell people, okay, if you're healthy and your expenses are under $3,600 a year, stick with your group health plan. But that day you become unhealthy, or the day you find out that you may have some upcoming medical needs that are going to require you to hit your deductibles and your out-of-pocket expenses on your group health plan, so group health insurance is going to become more expensive for you, well maybe that's the day you decide Medicare is better, because a lot of the Medicare benefits are first dollar benefits. So employers love, again, it's a win-win. The employee gets better coverage because they're getting first dollar benefits and they're sick, and we had somebody the other day, she needed a hip replacement. It was going to cost her $6,700 under her group health plan between deductibles and co-pays and follow-up and PT and everything involved. Well, she found out it was going to cost her $200 under Medicare. She said, I want to go into Medicare. It was like October 25th. I said, okay, when do you want to start? She goes, well, my surgery is on November 12th. So we started her in Medicare. October 25th she called. We started Medicare November 1. She had her surgery covered, it cost her $200 instead of $6,700. Employee was happy, employer was happy because that group health plan wasn't paying for that surgery and all that follow-up care, and it's not impacting their experience ratings for next year. And also dependent spouses, where the employer is not contributing as much to the dependent premium. A lot of the times we find that dependent spouses are more cost effective in Medicare. I think probably about 60% of our dependent spouses end up opting out of the group health insurance after they're educated on this. Now, employers cannot kick people off of the group health plan. They cannot incentivize them to come off of the group health plan, but they can educate them. And so we do offer, and we can teach you how and provide you with the presentation and all of the talking points on how to deliver this educational presentation in the worksite, which has a positive impact on both the employees and the employers with their decision on whether or not they want to voluntarily go in Medicare while they're still working. All right, so let's spend the last 15 minutes here talking about all the different benefits, the different options. We're just going to kind of touch on everything. I think it's important to know what the differences are. Getting into the nitty-gritty details, it's probably easier to learn that kind of stuff when you're actually dealing with a client and you have somebody in mind. Well, let's talk about the difference between Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage, and then we'll touch on prescription drug plans to wrap it up. Okay, so if you had Medicare only, these would be your out-of-pocket expenses in Medicare. Hospital is about $1,400 per stay. Outpatient, remember I said that surgery was going to cost the lady $200? Well, that's because if you have Medicare and a supplement, your deductible for your outpatient is $198. This year it was $185, still right around $200. So $198 deductible for outpatient, and then a 20% co-insurance. Now the problem with having Medicare only, the reason why supplements are so important is because that co-insurance has no maximum out of pocket. There's no cap. It's 20% of the $100 bill, it's 20% of the $100,000 bill. So for clients that have Medicare A and B only, they do have a large risk there on their medical expenses. $105,000 hospital observation at 20% co-insurance is not cheap. And in addition, we were talking about balanced billing when the commissioner was here. In Medicare, believe it or not, they use a different term. They call it excess. But it's legal to balance bill. In 43 states in the United States, it is legal for a doctor to accept Medicare and bill you up to 15% more than the Medicare allowable rate for their services. It's called an excess fee. It's legal in Maryland, DC, Delaware, Jersey. The closest state that it's not legal to is Pennsylvania. So everybody move on up to Pennsylvania now. So doctors, they can be one of three things. They can participate and accept the Medicare allowable rate. They can be deemed as non-participating, which means they actually participate, they just can charge excess. And then they have opt-out doctors. If you go to an opt-out doctor, they don't accept Medicare, Medicare won't pay. So there are doctors that are set up as being able to charge excess. And a lot of the specialty centers, like Mayo Clinic, they do exercise their right and charge the excess fees to the clients. Now, the good news with all of these out-of-pocket costs are we have a way to cover them. Now we're into the C category, Medicare Advantage versus Medicare Supplement. Real quick before we get started, I don't know how involved any of you guys are in supplemental plans, but did anybody hear Plan F is going away? Okay, so I'll just address it real quickly. I'm not going to go over all the details of this slide because it just seems like not many of you even know about it anyway. But there's been a rumor that Plan F benefit design is going away for 2020. And that's not true. What's happening is if you turn 65 after January 1st, 2020, you don't have access to Plan F. But if you turn 65 before January 1st, by the end of this month, if you're already 65, Plan F is not going anywhere, nothing's changing with it, you can have it, you can get it, you can use it. So it's only for the new young 65-year-olds that are coming in next year and after that Plan F is not going to be an option. So let me tell you what Plan F is so you even know what I'm talking about. Okay, so when we talk about Medicare supplements, otherwise known as Medigap plans, these are the different benefit designs that are available to you. They're located, or they're labeled by letters up at the top. I've circled the two most comprehensive plans, plans F and G. You see here in this red and yellow line that they're the only two plans that cover excess charges. So should your doctor charge excess, if you have a plan F or G, it doesn't matter. If you look down the column at Plan F, you see 100% all the way down. So all of these expenses I just told you about are covered 100% by Plan F. If you have Plan F with Medicare, you pay nothing for your medical care. No doctor copay, no hospital copay, surgery, lab work, x-rays, chemo, nothing. You pay your premium, everything else is taken care of. First dollar coverage. Plan G, there's only one difference. It does not cover, highlighted in blue, it does not cover the Medicare Part B deductible. Part B was outpatient care. The deductible is $198. You have Plan G with Medicare, you pay the first $198 of your medical expenses, then nothing for the rest of the year. 100% coverage, no co-pays, no nothing. It took my mom like 6 months to get used to it. Every time she'd have a doctor visit, why didn't they charge me a co-pay, Tracy? Because you don't have a mom. For 6 months, every doctor visit, she called me and wanted to know why she wasn't charged a co-pay. There's some lower cost options, Plan N, and something called a high deductible F. That are available as well if somebody's looking for something slightly less comprehensive but want to stay in the Medicare supplement model. Now Plan G, so we had talked about Plan F not being available to new people. It doesn't really matter because Plan G is a better buy anyway. So if we look at the cost differential between the Plan F and Plan G premiums, what you pay to have the insurance, Plan G is going to run a 65-year-old about $130 a month. Plan F is going to run about $155 a month. So over the course of the year, Plan F costs about $300 more in premium, and it only covers one additional benefit, which is a $200 deductible. So overall, it's costing you more money to be in Plan F. Or if you look at it the other way, Plan G saves you $300, but you have to pay $200 in a deductible, so your net savings is $100. So Plan G is the plan that almost everybody is choosing anyway. So the fact that Plan F is going away for new people that turn 65 after January 1st doesn't really make a difference. Their most comprehensive option is going to be Plan G, but they still will have the N or the high deductible plan to choose from as well, which are still also decent options for them. So this is the new landscape, and this is just another screenshot of one of the one-page handouts that we make available to you to use with your clients, or we would use them if the client called, which outlines so they can make an informed decision. Here's Plan F, Plan N, Plan G. Underneath it, I have the difference in the out-of-pocket expenses between each plan. And over here, we talk about the premiums from the different insurance companies. So this is obviously, you can see there's pull-down menus here. So as you quote and pick different insurance companies, you would fill in the blanks with all of this information. There's links here that if they want to see more detail on the benefits, they can click on the links and a more detailed outline of coverage will show up. So everything's all-inclusive in one page for them. When we shop for these plans, they're easy to shop for because the benefits are the same. Plan G is Plan G. AARP, Aetna, Care First, doesn't matter. G is G. Same benefits, same networks. No networks. As long as the doctor accepts Medicare, they will accept any supplemental plan. The biggest mistake our clients make is they call the doctor and say, do you accept my Transamerica? No, we've never heard of Transamerica. And then the client gets all upset, they don't accept my insurance. That's not the right question. The question is, do you accept Medicare? 98% of doctors in round numbers nationwide accept Medicare, so they will accept any supplemental plan. It's just secondary private insurance that sits on top of Medicare. Same claims process. Medicare makes all the claims decisions. The insurance companies have no say. They pay what Medicare tells them. So they don't have, really, there's no difference. And it's the same coverage anywhere in the United States. As long as your doctor accepts Medicare, it doesn't matter if they're in Arizona, Florida, California, or Maryland. They will accept your plan with the same benefits. So we're shopping premiums. And this is the free quote tool that I mentioned to you earlier. You plug in age, gender, and zip code, hit compute, and you have a list of 35 different companies and all of their rates. So who's going to give me the best price for that benefit design that I want? Are they a reputable company? Okay, that's the one I'm going to go with. The good news is the choice is up to your clients. You know, you're giving them the tools so they can make an informed decision. Okay, so that was Medicare supplements. The alternative to that, which have been advertised like crazy the past couple months, is Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage plans are part of this annual enrollment process. So every year you can change your Medicare Advantage plan. So we've seen a ton of commercials on TV between October 15th and December 7th on Medicare Advantage plans. So let me just explain the differences between these two. Medicare Advantage plans are managed care plans, which means you, your doctor, and the insurance company are involved in your medical care. So the insurance company plays a heavier hand in your medical decisions. If you go the supplement route with Medicare, there's no managed care. You and your doctor make the medical decisions. On the Advantage side, because it's managed care, they're network-based plans. The doctors have to decide which plans do I want to participate with based on their contracts and how they provide care and how they treat my patients. So they're PPOs and HMOs. Now what you have seen advertised is that they're very inexpensive. So I was just quoting $130 to $150 a month on a supplemental comprehensive premium. These plans are being advertised for $0 a month, $20, $40. I think they have an expensive one at $66 a month. You know, they're much cheaper on the premiums, and we're going to throw in some drug plan benefits, we're going to throw in some dental benefits, we're going to throw in all these other bells and whistles, and we're not going to charge you anything for it. Okay, that's great. So the supplements cost more, Advantage costs less on the premium, but when you get sick and need care, it's a menu of costs. So a primary care is going to cost this many dollars, let's say 10. A specialist may cost 40 or 50. Surgery may cost 200. I'm making these up, of course. The menu is different depending on the insurance plan, but there's a copay related to every service. And if you get sick and have lots of copays, your maximum out of pocket on an Advantage plan is $6,700 in network. Your maximum out of pocket on a Plan G supplemental plan is $198. So a difference in lower premiums, higher out-of-pocket expenses, higher premiums, lower out-of-pocket expenses, no network restrictions, no managed care. The biggest out-of-pocket expense on this side, just so you know, and it's on every plan except for I think the Kaiser plan, 20% copay on chemotherapy. If you need chemotherapy and you have a Medicare Advantage plan that's not a Kaiser plan, you will pay 20% for your chemotherapy up to $6,700. So in other words, chemotherapy will cost you $6,700 in a Medicare Advantage plan. Under a Medicare Supplement Plan G, it will cost you $198 capped for the whole year for all your services. So the question that we always get is, okay, well, I'm healthy, don't really care too much about the networks. Can't I just take one of these $0 plans for right now? And then when I get sick, let's bump me over to the other side. Well, we're in insurance. We know it can't be that easy, right? So when you first go into Medicare, any plan you want, no questions asked, either side. But once you've been in Medicare, you have the option to go into a Medicare Advantage or change your Advantage plan every year during the annual enrollment, October 15th through December 7th. The supplements, you never get an open enrollment again. You have to answer medical questions. You can change them at any time. You can go into them at any time, provided you're healthy enough to answer that insurance company's medical questions. So you have a 6-month window to make your best educated decision. After that, you can continue to move around, provided you stay healthy. Once you become sick, it's either to keep what you have on that side or to move over here to the Advantage side or change within the Advantage side. Make sense? All right, so everything about the Advantage plans are different. Let's move on to the supplemental plan. So Advantage plans, I don't go into the benefit details because they're different by county and by, well, county and zip code, same thing, but they're all different. So what we have to do, if we're shopping an Advantage plan for your clients, or if you're shopping one, we need to see what plans their doctor participates with, see what plans are available in their county of residence, and then from there we see who's going to give the best benefits for them. Okay, so drug plans, the D part of Medicare. Again, you see a lot of advertisements for these because there's an open enrollment or an annual enrollment every year from October 15th to December 7th for them to change their benefits. Prescription drug plans are all different in what they cost and what they cover. So every plan covers thousands, hundreds, thousands of prescriptions, but not necessarily every single one. So when we shop for prescription plans, we get a specific list of the prescriptions. Prescription name, dosage, how many pills they're taking every month, what pharmacy they shop at, and we plug all of this into Medicare's database. Nothing proprietary, it's just Medicare.gov, but you plug all of this information in there. And when you hit compute or show plans, it's going to pull up all of the plans and it's going to put them in order from most cost effective to least cost effective based on that mix of prescriptions and pharmacy utilization. So they're all different. You can't just lay 4 plans out on the table and say, Tracy, tell me what company's best. It's not. It's which one is most appropriate for that client's exact situation and prescription mix. Now, it doesn't mean that when we put in those scripts, those are the only scripts that are covered. The only reason we enter the scripts into the system is to see what plan covers those specific meds better than the other plans. So we have a nice way to shop for it, but they are pretty confusing. I think there's 27 plans available in Maryland this year. The computer system does all the work. It's just up to us on how to read the screens and communicate that to our clients, because they do get a little bit confusing. But the good news is we can reshop them every year. So we put you in your best plan. We can't use the word best, that's an illegal word in Medicare. We put you in your most appropriate plan out of the gate based on what we know you're taking. Hopefully it's going to remain good for you, even if you get new scripts throughout the year, but at the end of the year we'll reevaluate and change it if we need to. And that is something that I am actually very proud that we do in our office. We proactively follow up with every client on October 1st. We send them a letter and an email reminder to get in touch with us on their prescriptions so we can reshop. It makes the last 3 months out of the year extremely hectic in our office. I feel like I was let out of jail today. This is my first day out of the office and detached from the phone for the past 2.5 months. So I feel really good to be out and about, but it's important because these plans change each year, and sometimes you find that your scripts are covered good in 2019, and guess what? That script's not covered under that same plan next year. We gotta move you. So we always shop each and every year. Okay, so just wrapping this up, I'm not gonna go over all of the different donut hole stuff, but the donut hole, despite what they say, did not go away. It just is getting better and better. If any of you have ever heard the term donut hole as it relates to Medicare prescription plans, it's getting better, but it's not gone. So that rumor that it's gone, I can show you all the data as to why it's not gone, which I have slides on that too, but I think we're running out of time here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wrap this all together and show you what it looks like when it's all put together. So just like on the Medicare Part B, you pay more if you have a higher income. On the Medicare Part D, you pay more if you have a higher income. So the insurance company is gonna charge you a premium somewhere between $13 and $30, $40, $50 a month, but then the federal government's going to charge you a surcharge if you have a higher premium. So for our clients that are in the base income bracket, meaning households earning less than $174,000 a year, they're going to have their Part A for free. Their Part B next year is going to be $144. They'll have their supplement, their prescription plan. At the end of the day, A, B, C, and D together is going to cost somewhere in the ballpark of about $300 a month. And that's for comprehensive coverage, $200 deductible, then 100% coverage. If they're in the highest income bracket, that keeps going up, they're going to be spending more like $700 a month per person for a very comprehensive health care program in Medicare. So that's all I had for you. I think I have 1 minute to spare.
There you go.
So I did good. So any questions you guys have as it relates to the time, I'll let Brian dictate.
So I want to thank Tracy. Before I do, I just want to make a comment. Just as recent as a couple weeks ago, we had a client in our office for financial planning, and the client blew me away when he said, I have a $70,000 prescription drug expense that I'm taking into retirement. And unbelievably, he could handle it, this particular client. I was kind of shocked he could handle it, but I was more shocked that he was going to pay $70,000 a year plus inflation on a prescription drug for the rest of his life, and I was wondering how that could be possible. So the first thing he told me was that, look, I'm smart, he's an architect, and he said, I did a lot of research on this, all that mail he got, and he said that he got it negotiated down to $40,000. So I said, my wife's in the other office, she's not the Medicare expert, but she's pretty knowledgeable, and she has some resources. Yeah, the resources are HTA. So literally, before that phone call was over, I went back and said, well, we checked it out, we did the research, ran through some calculators, and we're going to get that down to about, you're going to take about $5,000, I think it was. I think it was $5,000 a year instead of $40,000 or $70,000. Obviously, that guy became a client, and we've already saved him a lot of money just because of our relationship, knowing we have our back office and our partnership relationship with HTA. So hopefully, many of you that are listening will take advantage of the resource. She mentioned a number of resources just by going to their website, reaching out to them, the forms that you'll need. Most important message that I took away is just being aware of how critical it is that people understand when's that moment that you're going to begin to research what your options are. Ignore the stack of this because it's confusing and a lot of it's misleading. And know that we have a resource that we can call and make sure that client's on the right track. So for all that you do and for our partnership relationship, we want to give Tracy a round of applause. Thank you so much. I want to remind everyone that we have two other sponsor organizations. Just again, Bellman Klein. We have Scott Silver here representing them, and they do a great job for us in the same way. When you have disability and life insurance, issues that you want to kind of get that broad-based understanding of the marketplace, they're a resource for that. And then finally, AXA Equitable on the annuity side, and again, just a resource to understand that marketplace. Great partnership relationship with Michael Z of AXA Equitable. Reminding you all that January 13th, which is a Monday at Red Wine, we've invited 188 House and Senate, the members of the House and the Senate. That's literally the entire House and Senate invited to be there. We do find a number of them.
January 13th.
January 13th. Yeah, absolutely. Our membership is invited to participate. It's a great opportunity to get to know a lot of our delegates and a lot of people that are calling the shots in Annapolis and for our state. Bryson and Joan did a great job putting that event. I think it's at least the third or fourth year you guys have done it. So make sure that you're there for that. Again, June 9th in my office, at my conference room. I want to fill it up. If we get an overflow, we'll find another location. I'm looking for other places around the state. This is sort of a prototype. By the time we get to February or March, I want to have 3 to 5 locations that people can be able to get access to, so that once a month we have this opportunity to continue to have opportunities to learn information that we can learn today and use tomorrow. Thank you all for participating. Thanks for all of you who joined us today. Thank you, NAIFA members, for your commitment to your clients and for your own career too. This is career insurance, to be part of an association that provides the advocacy and make sure that the products and services that we offer, the important things that we do to make sure that families stay in their own homes, the children get a chance to finish go to college, and that whatever those families' hopes and dreams are, they're protected because of what you do. And the advocacy is what makes that happen. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you at a NAIFA meeting near you. Thank you.